education meeting before Chicago elects a new mayor. Yesterday, Dr. Jackson and CPS presented a 5-year vision for Chicago Public Schools. Over the past week, CPS has announced various investments. We'd like to point out the inequity in the process, as well as the fact that all of these investments don't make up the $500 million removed from our schools during Emmanuel's time in office. We are here to demand that the next mayor listen to the parents in this district, the people who entrust their children to our public schools every day. Community organizations and CPS parents from across Chicago are here today to share our vision for CPS based on community-centered equity. Parents in community organizations know what their schools need. Community organizations regularly bring parents together to develop their vision for their schools. When talking about equity, our next mayor needs to hear from those most impacted, the parents who are here today. Today you're going to hear from different parents. First, we will have Joanna Cabrera, a parent leader from the Brighton Park Neighborhood Council.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joanna Cabrera, member of the Brighton Park community and mother of 2 children that had suffered the necessities and the constant cuts in our schools. It's not new for us that our city has been spending millions of dollars in new buildings, speed cameras all over the city, and embellishing downtown, while our schools have classrooms over capacity, buildings that are needing repairs, and communities with lack of services. Let me ask you something. Why do our children have to travel to other communities to get educated?
That ain't right.
Why
That's
do
not
parents don't get involved in their communities? Why? Because we do not have real community schools. That's why. We need free services and education classes for our parents. We need more counselors for our students and their families. Our city is suffering violence every day. But we can't stop that cycle of violence if we do not invest in services for our community schools. As mother of teenagers, I can tell you that I'm afraid of the education that my children are receiving. I'm very disappointed of the city of Chicago and the mayor, Emanuel, because he has shown that he does not care about our black and brown communities. He cares more about opening new schools, founding charter schools, selective enrollment with public schools that are open, and our students are being forgotten. After years of struggle, many of the organizations present today work with CTU and CPS to develop the Sustainable Community Schools Initiative. Despite winning these funds, we have not yet received an agreement to keep the program beyond this summer or expand it to other schools. We need CPS to make a real commitment to community schools. We need real education. We need CPS, funding equity, and real community schools now. Thank you.
That's right,
Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Joanna Cabrera, presidente de la comunidad de Brighton Park y madre de 2 hijos, los cuales han sufrido las necesidades y continuos recortes en nuestras escuelas. No es nada nuevo para nosotros escuchar que la ciudad de Chicago ha gastado millones de dólares en edificios nuevos, cámaras de velocidad en toda la ciudad y embelleciendo el centro de Chicago, mientras nuestras escuelas tienen clases sobrepobladas, edificios con necesidades de reparación y comunidades sin servicios. Déjenme les pregunto algo a todos. ¿Por qué nuestros hijos tienen que viajar a otras comunidades para recibir una buena educación? ¿Por qué los padres no se involucran en las escuelas? ¿Por qué? Porque no tenemos verdaderas escuelas comunitarias. Necesitamos servicios gratuitos y clases educativas para los padres. Necesitamos más consejeras y para ayudar a nuestros estudiantes y nuestras familias. Nuestra ciudad sufre violencia todos los días, pero no podemos cambiar ese círculo de violencia si no invertimos en servicios para nuestras comunidades. Como madre de adolescentes, les puedo decir que tengo miedo de la educación que mis hijos reciben y estoy desilusionada de la ciudad de Chicago y del alcalde Emanuel. ¿Por qué? Porque ha demostrado que no les importa la comunidad hispana ni la afroamericana. Le importa más abrir escuelas nuevas años de lucha, muchas de las organizaciones hoy aquí presentes trabajaron con CTU y CPS para desarrollar escuelas e iniciativas sostenibles. A pesar de ganar todos estos fondos, aún no hemos recibido un acuerdo para mantener el programa más allá de este verano o ampliarlo en otras escuelas. Necesitamos que CPS haga un compromiso real con las escuelas comunitarias. Necesitamos educación realmente buena para nuestros hijos, fondos equitativos y verdaderas escuelas comunitarias para todos. Gracias.
¡Educación! ¿Cuándo la queremos? ¡Ahora! ¿Cuándo la queremos? ¡Ahora! ¡Ahora! ¿Qué queremos? Muchas gracias, Joana. Es importante invertir realmente en las escuelas de la comunidad, mientras que la ciudad invierte en el centro, no invierte en nuestras comunidades ni en las escuelas de nuestras comunidades, como ha dicho Joana. Now we will hear from Ebony Lucas of Chicago United for Equity, and who is a parent at CPS and the member of the King College Prep LSC.
Hello, good morning. I'm Ebony Lucas, and I am a community rep on the King College Prep LSC. King College Prep is a selective enrollment school that has not had the leadership and innovation that students deserve. Over the past year, parents, teachers, and the school community have had to fight against to have a principal removed whose leadership style was unduly harsh and punitive. She set a dress code that she said publicly would prevent rape culture. She shortened school hours, refused to allow students and parents to use the media center and library, canceled extracurricular programming, and got rid of a community rep position so that she could hire additional security. Not because any incident occurred, but because her leadership style favored policing our children over educating them.
That ain't right.
The students staged a sit-in, and it requested, among other things, simply to be able to use the library in order to do their homework, and she ignored them. Even after a vote of no confidence by the LSC and the teachers, CPS took no action. As a result, some of the strongest students transferred mid-year, and we lost the whole front office staff. This principal has a long history of poor performance, and now that she is finally being removed from King College Prep, she's on her way to another school. Assuming that parents don't know what's best for their children has to stop. Ignoring teachers and community has to stop.
Yes.
The future of our communities depend on having quality, well-funded schools with leadership that works collaboratively to meet students' needs.
Yes.
Parents shouldn't have to take off work to fight for their children's education. CPS should be listening and engaging the community on an ongoing basis and addressing issues in a timely and purposeful manner.
That's right.
Thank you, Ebony. It is clear that CPS is not listening to the parents. Parents know what they want. The parents understand what is going on in their schools. Now we're going to hear from Mr. G2 Brown of the Kenwood, Oakland Community Organization and Journey for Justice, and he is also a CPS parent.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On Tuesday, March 26th, we learned about Chicago Public Schools releasing its 5-year vision for education in Chicago. Two of the priorities that were listed, equity and integrity. While this sounds good as talking points, these words ring hollow for the following reasons. First, how can you release a 5-year vision for public schools with no consultation with the public? With all the harm that has been done through the trauma of nearly 170 school actions in the last decade, displacing our children, more black and brown children being forced to graduate from alternative schools, and spikes in violence in communities. How can Chicago Public Schools continue the practice of thinking they know what's best for us without talking to us? This is the status quo. Secondly, the standards for equity cannot be set by the establishment. Government does not determine what's equitable, the people do. We can tell you from our lived experience what it's like to have children in a kindergarten class with 51 other kids, while on the other side of our city, children have smaller class sizes and teacher aides. Government can respond to public demand by listening, and that is what Chicago Public Schools has repeatedly failed in doing. On the question of integrity, we would encourage Chicago Public Schools to do a listening tour in communities they have devastated around inequity and school closures to understand the harm that they have inflicted. How can you call schools failing schools when as a system you have not addressed the mandate of Brown v. Board?
That's right.
We do not have failing schools, we have been failed. We do not have failing schools, we have been failed.
That's right.
Finally, our demands are clear. We demand an elected representative school board now. Why is Chicago Public Schools afraid of democracy? Secondly, we want Chicago to be a sustainable community school district. If community schools, according to the Learning Policy Institute, are one of the most effective school interventions to improve student performance, why is Chicago Public Schools afraid of embracing the concept of community schools? We want real sanctuary cities for black and brown children. We do not want our children policed. We do not want ICE raiding our schools. We want our young people to be safe, not treated as they were criminals or less than human. Our demands are clear. We want restorative justice in our schools. And we demand that no longer will Chicago Public Schools make decisions about us without us.
That's right.
What they have demonstrated, what they have proven with an incredible mastery is their incompetence. They have proven that they do not understand how to implement education in our communities, and we demand different. We choose equity, not the illusion of school choice.
That's right.
When our communities are under attack, we stand up and fight back.
That's right.
When our communities are under attack,
We stand up and fight back.
when our education is under attack,
We stand up and fight back.
when education is under attack,
We stand up and fight back.
Thank you. We will now have Margarita Marquez from Enlace, Chicago.
Buenos días. Buenos días. Buenos días. Mi nombre es Margarita Márquez. Soy mamá de 2 niñas de las escuelas públicas de Chicago. En mi comunidad necesitamos que todas las escuelas tengan suficiente dinero para poder triunfar. Es importante que todas las escuelas recibamos presupuestos de manera apropiada para tener mejores recursos para programas de instrucción de 2 idiomas, para crear realmente escuelas santuario, con recursos dentro de las escuelas y servicios de salud mental para todos los estudiantes. Mi idioma nativo y el de mis hijas es el español. Tanto para mí como para ellas, es importante que aprendan a pensar en español tanto como en inglés. No porque yo hablo español en la casa, indica que ellas automáticamente van a tener todo el conocimiento de pensar críticamente en su idioma nativo. Los programas de dos idiomas nos ayudan a asegurar que la cultura se mantenga y así respetar de dónde son yo y su familia. No me gustaría que por el idioma tengan un obstáculo comunicándose con sus abuelitos. Yo sé muy bien que para que ellas se sientan seguras de sí mismas, tienen que aprender de dónde vienen y el idioma les ayuda a entender su identidad y cultura. Así ellas podrán alcanzar mejores logros académicos y tener mejor éxito en su futuro. En mi comunidad se necesitan mayores recursos para que las escuelas estén realmente equipadas con los fondos necesarios para poder llamarse escuela santuario. Se necesita real inversión para que junto con la participación de los padres y la comunidad logremos sentirnos más seguros en nuestra comunidad y en nuestra escuela. Quiero que mi escuela esté libre de temores antimigrantes luchados por la policía y por el ICE. En mi comunidad, tanto la violencia como la pobreza, como la inseguridad, el temor y muchas otras cosas nos causan que necesitemos mayores servicios de salud mental dentro de las escuelas. Hace 2 años tuve una tragedia en mi familia. Mi esposo, el papá de mis hijas, falleció y quedamos muy afectadas, totalmente destrozadas. En ese momento yo busqué apoyo emocional en la escuela para poder lidiar con esta separación. En la escuela hay muchos estudiantes. La consejera tiene muchos casos y mis niñas no tuvieron suficiente apoyo dentro de la escuela porque no existe. Porque la ciudad, nuestro distrito de las escuelas públicas de Chicago, dicen que no tiene suficientes recursos para invertir realmente en los seres humanos, nuestros estudiantes. Merecemos que nuestras escuelas estén totalmente financiadas, escuelas bien equipadas, con suficientes fondos para programas de 2 idiomas, escuelas santuario y servicios para la salud mental que incluye trabajadores sociales, consejeros, recursos equitativos y apoyo adicional para los niños que más lo necesitan así como mis hijas. Como madre de estudiante de CPS, mis necesidades deben ser respetadas. La mesa directiva de CPS no respeta mis necesidades ni las de otras familias como la mía. La mesa directiva no hace caso a las familias más vulnerables del distrito escolar. Gracias.
Good morning, my name is Margarita Marquez. I'm the mother of 2 girls in CPS. In my community, we need all schools to have enough funds to be successful. It is important that all schools receive appropriate budgets to have better resources for dual language instruction programs, to truly create sanctuary schools with resources within the school, and to provide mental health services for all students. My native language and that of my daughters is Spanish. For me, as well as for them, it's important that they learn to think critically in Spanish in addition to English. Not because I speak Spanish at home, it indicates that they will automatically have all the knowledge to develop critical thinking skills in their native tongue. The dual language programs helps us ensure that the culture is maintained and thus respects where me and my family come from originally. I would hate it if my children could not communicate with their grandparents in Spanish. I know very well that in order for them to feel secure about themselves, they have to learn where they come from, and the language helps them understand their identity and their culture, so they can achieve greater academic achievements and have greater success in their future. In my community, more resources are needed so that the schools are really equipped with the necessary resources to be able to call themselves sanctuary schools. Real investment is needed so that along with the participation of parents and community, we can feel more secure in our schools. I want my school to be free of anti-immigrant fears driven by police and by ICE. In my community, violence and poverty, as well as insecurity and fears, and many other issues lead us to need more mental health services within our schools. 2 years ago, I experienced a tragedy in my family. My husband, the father of my daughters, passed away, and we were very affected, totally destroyed. At that time, I looked for emotional support in their school to deal with this separation. But at the school, there's too many students. The counselors had so many cases, and my 2 girls did not get enough support inside their school because it does not exist. Because in our world-class city, our Chicago Public School District claims to not have enough resources to really invest in human beings, our students. We deserve that our public schools are fully funded and well-equipped schools with sufficient funds for thriving dual language programs, sanctuary schools on mental health services, including social workers, counselors, and equitable resources for the children who need it most, as well as for my daughters. As a mother of students in CPS, their needs and my needs must be respected. The CPS board does not respect my needs or those of other families like mine. The board ignores the most vulnerable families in the school district, and that's not right. Thank you, Margarita. We will now hear from Lucas, Executive Director at Enlace, Chicago.
En los días anteriores, nuestra comunidad recibió noticias de otra cachetada de parte de las escuelas públicas de Chicago. Una expansión de $32 millones en programas especiales para las escuelas. En la lista, en la totalidad de la lista, no había ni una sola escuela localizada en nuestra comunidad de La Viñita. Aun cuando nosotros tenemos 21 escuelas en nuestra comunidad, estas no estaban incluidas en esta lista de una inversión de $32 millones. Es una cachetada para nosotros como comunidad, habiendo estado trabajando por tantos años en la educación de nuestros niños, esperanzados en que el concepto de equidad sea respetado, en que nuestros padres en los niños adquieran los recursos necesarios, y entonces estamos demandando eso porque no sabemos cuál fue el proceso que culminó en una decisión que deja a nuestra comunidad otra vez afuera. I was saying that in the past day we received the news of a new investment of $32 million for special programs, for academic programs. It was said that it was the largest academic investment that CPS has ever made. We have 21 schools in Little Village. Not a single one of our schools was in that list. Not a single one of our schools received funding from this $32 million. And only one school in our network, Network 7, that is Pilsen and Little Village, Perez, was the only one that received the funding. But do not believe everything you hear. When you read a title that says $32 million for 32 schools, you assume they're getting $1 million per school. Well, Perez only is getting $25,000 out of the $32 million. So that's the investment that they made in Network 7 of those $32 million. So again, we're talking about equity here. And what equity means is to invest in those people that have been historically marginalized, to invest in the growth so that people can get at the same level. So for us, this is not equity, and the decision was not equitable. So we want the leadership in CPS to think very hard about what equity means when they talk about equity, and that's why we're here today.
Thank you, Katia. Parents from across Chicago are clear. We want community-centered equity for our schools. We demand support for neighborhood schools and for sustainable community schools, wraparound services, authentic, culturally relevant curriculum and assessments, dual language instruction and education, smaller class sizes, sanctuary schools, restorative justice and practices, nurses, social workers, counselors, and librarians, robust special education, robust selection of classes and after-school programs, safe spaces, parents and youth leadership opportunities, ending student-based budgeting and funding schools fully and equitably, fixing and maintaining our school buildings and grounds, and electing a representative school board. Until then, teachers and neighborhood schools, parents on the appointed school board. Racial and socioeconomic equity measured by outcomes, do not access to opportunities, and authentic parent and community engagement with community participating in planning and in decision making. We're tired of the Hunger Games, of school choice in a portfolio district. We want a district of sustainable community schools in our neighborhoods. We can no longer ignore English language learners. We can no longer ignore diverse learners, basic health needs, trauma, and poverty, and displacement in our communities. We demand that our wealthy city fund all schools fully and fairly. You cannot have equitable outcomes without an equitable process.
Come on, sir.
Which means that the students and the families experiencing the greatest disparities in our district must have meaningful decision-making power in defining the futures of our schools. We are ready to work with Chicago's next mayor to implement our vision for our schools here in our city of Chicago.
Our schools!
Whose schools?
Our city!
Whose schools?
Our schools!
Whose city?
Our city!
Thank you very much. This concludes our press conference for the day.
Hey.